I don't want a pickle. I just want to ride on my motorcycle. Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the Noco Moto podcast, episode number... This is 272, I think. I'm your host, MotoGP. With me is your other host, Swiggy.
Yo.
And also, top-level newsman, Mike Action. Dr. Mike Action. There we go.
Daily news.
Coming to you from Moto One Podcast Network Studios, Recording Suite A, otherwise known as the Tiki Room. Where, what are we drinking today, boys?
And it's all for me grog.
Me jolly, jolly grog. All for me beer and tobacco. For I spent all me tin with the lassies drinking gin. And across the western ocean I must wander. We are drinking grog.
We are drinking grog. And we just break into song. This is just natural for us.
I'm enjoying this grog. This is a great way to rum slum it, man. Okay, so what are we going to talk about this week? We are going to do best worst bike in the world this week. We are going to do some news with Mike Action. And if we have time also, I would like to discuss, God damn it. I would like to discuss how much we ride versus virtually ride. We've talked about this in the past, but this is worth revisiting. How much do we ride versus virtually ride? And is this podcast part of the problem? Spoiler, yes.
You virtually ride like Tron bikes?
Sure. So, I also do want to say that after our last episode, Cleveland Moto decided to respond. And I'm not going to respond back because I said everything I need to say. Because kids, you don't have to be correct on the internet or reassert that you're correct or argue that someone misunderstood your point. You don't have to do it. It turns out you can just say what you mean to say and just leave it. So, I'm hopefully setting an example for the rest of the internet, which no one will pay attention to, that it's okay to just leave it. Okay.
We all have area for growth and discovery here on now that we're up on YouTube. Like, for example, now that there's a camera, I've discovered that I've just been pointing my crotch at the camera for the past 3 times I've been on this show.
Good stuff.
Maybe it's helping the numbers.
Lean in.
Swigs. Guys, what do we say we get to best worst bike in the world this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Actually, wait, before we do that, I do want to put out a call to action to our listeners. We are broke, and this podcast doesn't generate a ton of cash. And we have a way that we think will significantly increase the quality of the podcast, which involves as many listeners as possible volunteering to just mail us old, like GoPro, like 4s or 5s that they haven't used for years. If you have a GoPro that you would just like to donate to the cause, because we kind of need an army of them, send a message to contact@nocomotopodcast.com or just join the Patreon. That would help too. All right. Also, we could use some more condenser mics and things to phantom power them. So, Swigs, we're going to do best worst bike in the world this week. This is best worst bike in the world this week. This is the segment where Swigs and I have each chosen a motorcycle. If you're new to the show, check it out. We don't know what each other have chosen. It's always a surprise. Now, some of you are going to be like, bullshit, that's not a great bike, or that's not a worst bike, or whatever. Or, why aren't you talking about my favorite bike? Why don't you just go back in the show's history and try to find when we talked about your favorite or least favorite bike? In the meantime, For new listeners, I'm not even against the idea of revisiting some best and worst bikes. We're like getting close to 300 episodes in now. We could repeat a few for a new round of listeners that are coming online. So, Swigs, you have worst bike in the world this week.
I do.
And are you ready to reveal it?
I am.
All right, and the worst bike in the world this week is
The 2025 BMW R12
Really? I've kind of softened up on these.
I haven't in the slightest.
Oh, really? I hated these when they came out. Well, when it was just the R90. Now it's the 1290, so it's gone up. Because it was a...
Nope. It's the same 1170 motor.
Oh, okay.
Still air-cooled.
So there's just been some small styling updates for this year then.
Essentially, yes. And this is really kind of just a check-in on this bike.
Okay.
Because we did do this several years ago.
Yes.
Well, I think we did this like 5 years ago.
I want to say my complaint was that the bike just seems unfinished. Like sort of BMW's take on a Ducati Monster. But because there's no cool trellis frame or anything, it's just sort of like, well, where's the rest of the bike?
Right. So ultimately this, started out as kind of a stripped down GS with, I think, a slightly different frame and, a lot of the bodywork taken off. Air-cooled, not air-cooled, oil-cooled instead of liquid-cooled. Tuned down a little bit. And then just kind of meant to be this kind of naked roadster type bike. But then...
It kind of has, like, Rockster vibes.
Right. But...
I'd rather have a Rockster, even though that's a horrifically ugly motorcycle.
But ultimately, this bike landed in a place where I don't know what this bike is. I don't think any other rider knows what this bike is meant to be. And I don't think BMW knows what this bike is meant to be. I remember a while ago when we were still talking to... who's that Moto Gear guy that we interviewed, and we were talking, and I had picked this bike when he was on, and he commented, actually, yeah, everything you're saying is true, because, we did those, like, Moto loot boxes for people.
Oh, was it Greg from Biker Gear Club.
Biker Gear Club, yeah. And he was saying, actually, yeah, we did get a bunch of R9T guys, like, request one box for, like, adventure riders, and then, like, switch over to sport bike, and then switch over to something else. So R9T riders don't know what this bike is meant to be. They don't know where they belong. And it's in this weird case where they've tried to dress it up as kind of a naked sport bike. They've tried to dress it up as, like, a retro bike. They've tried to do a scrambler kit for it. They've tried to do all these things, but it doesn't really fit into any of them. And it's this weird, boxer twin with a shaft drive. It's huge. It's the 1200cc motor just sticking out the side of the bike. And it hasn't really found its place. And ultimately, it's just another big, oversized engine for a bunch of old guys to just constantly short shift and never really enjoy and never really do what it's meant to do. Which, again, nobody knows what it is.
I think some of the appeal is it's the closest you get in a BMW to, like, an old /7 series.
Yeah, to a degree.
But the problem is that the motors now have so many sensors and electronics and computers and whatever that instead of this nice, clean looking transmission and crankcase sandwiched by two beautiful air-cooled cylinders, it just kind of looks like a Michael Bay Transformer right?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
It's like staring, like when you look at the engine, it's like staring at Michael Bay Megatron's face. You're not really sure where all like the actual features are located,
For sure, yeah.
right?
But
Does that make sense?
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
whereas an old
Yamaha-
/7 series, you're like, oh, look at this like unique engine layout that also has a sort of elegance to its shape and design, and a /7 series is a beautiful thing, and I think there's something about this that's supposed to be
Yeah.
a little reminiscent of that, but kind of like the Kawasaki Z series, it's gone all technical about it. But do we want that? I don't think
Well,
we do.
that's true. But I think Yamaha has done incredibly well with the XSRs of making that style work. Where they've kind of gone for that classic, steel tank over the top with that modern engine, and they've just kind of modernized that tank to kind of make it all blend together. But if that's what they were going for with this bike, then they failed miserably.
Well, the biggest thing they failed on with this is, unlike a Ducati Scrambler, because there's a little Ducati Scrambler in this with those pipes coming off, those two pipes coming off one side there, even though it looks like it's a 2-into-1 split back into 2 exhaust system, which is kind of lying. And unlike a Ducati Monster, or unlike a Triumph Bonneville, or unlike a W800, or unlike even a Triumph Daytona, if you're thinking this is more sort of performance oriented, or a Trident, or whatever other sort of standard / naked / kind of sporty / sort of vintage, sort of retro, sort of whatever bike it might come in at. This is $17,000, where all those bikes I just mentioned are much closer or under $10,000.
That's the next part. This bike is more expensive than a lot of super bikes. This bike, like, there are bikes that are making like 50 and 60 more horsepower.
You might
than
still
this.
be able to get a Fireblade for 17 or 18,000, but ZX10R is a full like $19,500. Like, let's just pause for a second. A ZX10R is only $4,500 cheaper than a Goldwing. If every other motorcycle on the planet is priced appropriately, the Goldwing's kind of a deal right now.
So I would compare this to something like the CB1000R or the CB1000R.
That's
Hornet
a
edition.
more fair comparison, yeah. But those are still like 14, 15, 13, somewhere in there.
That's a more comparable price, though. That's 14 to 17. I mean, it's, but I was
13.
I was holding out for this bike. I saw it wasn't my favorite bike when you first showed me the picture, but I was like, I don't know, I could still enjoy it. And then you got to 17.5, and I just start thinking about everything I don't like about it.
So
Right.
so the CB1000R, which is the inline 4, is $13,000.
And I would rather have it than this. I know you hate that bike, but at least we know what it is.
And the Hornet SP is $1,100.
Yeah, definitely better than this.
So what is it you're knocking? Are you knocking the 2025? Are you knocking all 90s?
It's a poorly executed vision, and for this price, it should be somebody's favorite bike.
If you dial it back,
And I don't know who that person
right,
is.
it doesn't have a target. Yeah, they're confused. If you dial it back a few years, were the NTs, did they have style? Because I'm going back a few years and there's still all this scrambler stuff.
Right.
I
And
remember them being less ugly than this like 8 years ago, but maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, and it's now in the marketing for this. Now, definitely, a Triumph is absolutely guilty of this as well, where it's like we don't know who this bike is really for entirely, so let's get a supermodel with a 3/4 helmet and put him in a black jacket and jeans and call it a day, going down some streets with some weird architecture. But again, I don't know who this is for, and I don't think they do either. This is the most generic branding you could possibly do. Also, let me see if I can find it on the page here. They've brought back the hashtag Soul Fuel branding for this.
Oh, I thought we were done with that. Soul Fuel. What was
if I ever get a BMW, I'm getting a Soul Fuel sticker for it.
Was did Soul Fuel come out? Was it the Roctane or?
It was the R18.
Right, but they did a version of the R18 that had rock in the name. Was it Roctane?
I think it might have been Roctane.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, if you just go to the BMW website,
Is Soul Fuel supposed to be like, no, we're not emitting carbon, we're emitting good vibes?
Yeah. Also,
is that like what they're trying to very lightly suggest?
So there are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. There are, it is the Roctane.
What
They're
a fucking awful name.
There are I'm convinced they haven't sold like a tenth of the ones they've created, because there are now
The Roctane. If there had been a motorcycle that you could have ridden in Cruisin' USA, it would have been called the Roctane, right?
Yeah. So just looking at the at the BMW catalog here, there are currently 10 different distinct R18 models available. I don't think they're selling these bikes.
And none of them. This is an Indian FTR situation. The R18 concept model was, again, like there was more pictures of the R18 concept model in 2019 on the internet than there was porn. It was just fucking everywhere. And then the R18 came out, and everybody was universally disappointed. I don't know why. This is how it goes with concept models versus whatever. But everyone got disappointed and butthurt that it wasn't exactly like this motorcycle that had been the concept. And so here's the thing. There's how many flavors though of R9 or R12, sorry. R12 9T.
So there has been like 6 or 7, but now there's just the one.
Well, that's kind of better, but okay.
Okay, but let me tell you what this bike should be. What space this should occupy, because I think BMW is being very cowardly here, and that essentially they've taken like the 1150 motor and they're trying to just shove it into this bike and kind of make it work as this kind of naked bike.
It's a wonderful motor, though. Like
it is, but it's too much for this application, and it doesn't make sense. But what they really should do is they should make the commitment to make a smaller displacement version of this motor. Maybe put some fewer features into it and make it rock solid, and make it kind of like 800 cc's or like an 850 or something.
Anywhere from 650 to 800, yeah.
Like, drop the horsepower to like half.
Yeah, 75.
Make this
70.
like a 15,000 mile oil change interval. Like, make this like the most bulletproof motor ever.
Well, you need displacement to make it that low and achieve the horsepower numbers that you want.
But I mean, drop it to like 60 horsepower. And what you should do is what they should make it is BMW's equivalent to the Moto Guzzi V7. They need this entry level. This isn't so small I feel like a beginner and I feel like a total novice and loser. But also it's kind of nice and it's an aesthetic that I appreciate and can like. And then do it up in like an R/7 styling, you know? Make it, even make the engine look classic and have a large production volume, reasonable cost, kind of mid-level, entry-level, classically styled bike. That's what it should be.
I agree. I would be more interested in that bike than I am this. Because, I mean, look, if you put me on one and had me ride it around, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this BMW 1150 motor, like, fuck, this put BMW on the map in America, right?
Yeah.
This motor cannot be faulted. It's wonderful. I'm having a great time riding around. But then I would get off the bike and be like, I'm not in love with it anymore. I'm sure I'd be in love with it while I'm riding it, but when you get off I'm like, do I want to even get back on it? I don't know.
Well, the question is, do you want to drop $17,000 on that bike compared to any other offering on the market? And the answer is no.
Right.
Why would you love this bike more than any other bike?
There's a universe that will happen 86 billion years from now where we're having this exact same conversation again, except that we've both previously owned second, third, eighth hand GS 1150s, right? And we're like, oh my God, this bike is so much fun to ride. Why doesn't BMW just release a stripped down version of this? Right? And we're the biggest proponents of this ever. Because that's, I guess, who this bike is for, is someone that has a GS 1150 and is like, well, I just use it for riding it all sporty. I just take advantage of the big ass fucking twin motor and just blast around on that. And I wish it didn't have all this extra weight and nonsense on it that I don't give a shit about. And then it could be like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 cheaper, which it is than a fucking GS.
I don't know about that. So from all the bikes I've test ridden and kind of
hold on, back up. You're like, look, I don't know if that's who this bike's for. No. We've just you admitted yourself you have no idea who this fucking bike is for. I just put up a very plausible explanation of who this bike is for, and you're just I don't know.
Well, okay, for who it is,
you can't do that. Switch.
I can see some people. I will admit there are some people who would go for that. For me personally, I would say at this point, I don't know if I will ever buy a bike that has more than 120 horsepower. Unless it's something that's so absurd like the Dragster. Absurd in the same way as the Dragster.
You might own a Busa one day just to say you had one.
Maybe.
It's you're more likely to have a concourse, though.
Potentially. But I'm starting to get to the position now that I think it may actually be a bit of a curse to have too much horsepower. And you're actually robbing yourself of some enjoyment.
Perhaps. It depends on the bike, the situation, the application. I think the whole reason you want something 150 plus horsepower on a concourse is because you're riding the highway so much. You want roll-on power to just be like, oh, there's a semi. I don't even want it to take 20 seconds to pass the semi. I just want to go, wham, I'm past the semi.
You want excess power for constant speed.
No, not for constant speed.
You mean reserve power?
Oh, sorry, reserve power.
Excess power is to go, well, I'm perfectly happy here at 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, just cruising along, getting awesome mileage. The engine's at a very reasonable RPM for doing this, but I can just wham, open it up and ask it to make 150 horsepower for 8 seconds. And it'll rev up that quick and do it. and then lay off the throttle again.
Well, not even 8 seconds. More like 0.8 seconds. It's...
Well, to give you the kick in the ass, but like most people don't. They just ride it out and they leave the fucking semi like so they can barely see them in their mirrors anymore. But like, yeah. The point is that once you get above like 85, 88-ish horsepower, the only thing you could possibly be chasing is roll, but still at 100 horsepower, you have a lot of roll-on power at 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. You know, but that's the big thing of having 100, 120 or something versus having, 55, 60, 65 is instead of having to accelerate around a semi like a fucking car, you can just boop, go around them or whatever.
Let me see if I can find it. There's a great video of, and like they get posted yearly every time in the spring when Stelvio Pass opens up. And it's all these dudes in their 50s on their, R13 and R12s, like their new BMW GSs.
This fucking phone.
Can you just put it in airplane mode?
I thought I did.
Anyways, there's this great video of all these guys on their brand new, Ducati Multistradas and their...
Fuck you! Okay, sorry.
You good?
So, a commercial started playing on the fucking sound effects app.
Anyway, there's this great video on basically of people just...
Listeners, we're broke. We need a sound effects machine.
And free GoPros.
Like, this is basically what I want to do when I retire, is I want to be able to just, go to Stelvio Pass every spring and watch people drag their adventure bikes out and watch all these people on their brand new GSs and their Multistradas take them up Stelvio Pass and watch these old bastards who have been always criminally short-shifting their giant touring bikes. And then they finally encounter something that actually requires horsepower. And because they've built up this muscle memory of not ever doing shit with their bikes, just riding it to Starbucks and all the normal, caricatures of those riders, it turns out it's actually pretty true. Because they finally hit something with some incline. They don't know what road position they need to be in. And then they try and climb up a 30% grade with, in 6th gear. And then they don't have the torque, and then they drop the bike because it stalls out. And this happens all the time. And a bike with 50 horsepower can do the Stelvio Pass. They were doing the Stelvio Pass, in the 30s. This is, an old,
I might be able
road.
to fucking duck walk the gyro up it.
That'd be something to watch. So
The gyro might be a bit of a struggle. But no,
It might need some extra power from my legs. But
yeah.
I
But
could duck walk it up there,
But this is something people
this is
did.
a requirement now.
This is something people did with, carbureted bikes that weighed 400 pounds and made 11 horsepower.
Right.
And people
Yeah, it's
can't
a skill issue.
Right. But what ultimately happens is that people get these big bikes making, 110, 120, 130 horsepower. And the only thing they ever do with it is just shift earlier. They never unlock the power in that bike. And they never learn to ride the bike correctly for the power and the weight that it has.
Right. Yeah,
And-
this is true.
So, Swiggy, you don't have to retire to fulfill this dream. We could go up to, we should go up to Stelvio Pass this summer with lawn chairs, some Moto Compactos, that cooler that's a scooter
Oh,
where
yeah.
you sit on the lid, and we'll make a day of it.
Do you know where Stelvio Pass is, Mike?
Yeah, I was about to
No,
say.
where's Stelvio Pass?
It's in Europe.
It's in the
This-
Alps.
This changes nothing.
So, Okay. We veered from the R129T, but suffice it to say that it's a very expensive bike for it not really having a solid play. I would say, I don't really want to get down on it for it being a bad motorcycle or a bad experience or an ugly motorcycle. I want to say that BMW hasn't realized this vision very well. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the thing with BMW is they're always on the bleeding edge of motorcycle styling, and it's never really my thing. But I don't like BMW lives in the future of motorcycle styling. I like to think I live in the present of motorcycle styling, and I think most motorcyclists live in the past as far as styling goes. And BMW is there going like, check it out. Here's the latest tech, except for this stubbornly stupid engine layout we have, which is cool, but it's also not ideal. Whatever, it's our mechanical signature, but here's all the other technology and gadgets and things that go with it, along with the kind of futuristic / 5 years in the future sort of styling thing. So, it's unfair for me in a way to say like, well, this is dumb because I don't like the way it looks. Well, there's plenty of bikes I love the way they look. The general public is like, are you fucking high? I don't think BMW has done a very good job of giving this bike an identity, and also the public has not done a very good job of giving it an identity.
Probably because it's 17.5.
Honda released the NC 700 and NC 750 thinking, oh, well, here we go. Here is the more road-oriented, but still somewhat as adventure-capable as it turns out you actually really need a bike to be. Awesome mileage, super easy to ride, amazing price point. Oh, everyone will go for it. And everyone went like, no, we want to feel cool with our oversized, too much adventure bikes. But then this weird group of people did latch on to the NC, right? And then the public gave that bike its own little like cool niche, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a huge group of people, but they are proud. And the NC 750X community is a rabid group of weirdos that I enjoy very much, right? When someone says to me that they have an NC 700 or 750 or whatever, and they love the shit out of it, I'm like, ooh, we're going to get along. I don't know. That must exist somewhere with the R9T, but I've never come across it. And I come across a lot of motorcycle subcultures.
There's a couple of these I like just browsing through all the pictures. There's a couple that hit it for me. It's not the
right.
R12
Right. To do that, you've got to buy an R9T of some sort of flavor for however much money, and then throw even more money into making it the way that you want to hit your specific little fucking fetish that has the bike make you feel the way you want it to.
Yeah.
For $17,000, it should do that out of the goddamn box.
So here's a question. So this bike doesn't really have a target that we can identify.
Not that we can identify. BMW must have something in their plans, right? The thing's in fucking production. They're probably making tens of thousands of them a year. Like, they're selling to somebody somewhere for something, and BMW has some sort of fucking plan. They've kept it in production. It's just a fucking mystery to us.
Maybe it's big
and we
I don't
are
know if they
tuned
have.
in.
I don't know if they really have, though, because it's the same motor from like 12 years ago.
If you walk into like BMW headquarters, though, I'm sure it's not like a scene out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit with like people like bursting through walls and like people just spraying silly string everywhere. Like they've got a plan. Right? Like there's important looking people moving paper around with numbers on it, right? Like it's they're not just like, well, let's just make a thing that looks like Pokemon and sell it to people. Like, no, like there's a plan. Someone had to put together a PowerPoint presentation or something, or a TED Talk or something in a boardroom and go, here's the thing that I think will sell for this reason. And investors went, okay, right?
Yeah, yes, but also like I have a sneaking suspicion that when After Long Way Round came out, and they started selling a shit ton of 1150s, and then they bumped up to the 1200, and they started going through all the adventure bikes. At one point, they just way overproduced motors, and then they've been trying to sell off a lot of them, and they maybe nominally kind of kept it going. But
but that's a plan. They're like, okay,
Yeah.
it's the 1150. Let's strip it down because one, that's the cheapest way to do it. Two, people can kind of superimpose their own vision onto it, right?
yeah,
And that might explain why it doesn't have so much of a strong identity.
right. So, but I also put this from the perspective of like everyone kind of thinks that like, oh, this is a 2025 bike, so the motor must have been made in 2025. All of this must be new.
Oh no,
Which
the
is-
motor could be from 2020. Yeah.
Right. There's like, I think most people aren't aware
It's
of
not a bad thing though.
Yeah.
These motors have been tested. They're
Right.
fucking tough.
Yeah, they're BMW motors.
I'm more talking about.
Well,
from
that
the-
doesn't always mean tough.
But I think most
But in
people
this
aren't.
case, it does.
I think most people don't think about the fact that like most motorcycles are made on like a jelly bean style assembly line, where they do them in big batches, and
Oh right, yeah.
ultimately what happens is if you buy a 2025 bike that's been at its like the third or fourth model year, it's not inconceivable that the engine that went into that was made in 3 or 4 years ago and has been sitting on a shelf that whole time, where they just did a big batch of motors and they said, we're going to keep using this and then this model year. And then, for the next model year, it's like, okay, we're doing new body panels, we're doing new fairings, we're doing a new headlight or a new dash. And then that comes into the factory and then they put all of that together.
Yeah, Americans have this idea of numbers matching frames and engines. And I just don't know how long that really hasn't been much of a thing. But it used to be like, okay, engines come off the line, they're stamped with numbers. Frames come off the line, they're stamped with numbers. And it's not like they were the same number, but numbers matching was like, oh, this batch of engine numbers kind of lines up with this batch of frame numbers. Here we go. They match, right? So it's not a motor from 10 years later shoehorned into the thing. You can't, or 6 years later or whatever. They would roughly be like, a sort of 5,000 or 6,000 number range that they would fit in, and you'd be like, okay, the odds that this isn't the original motor is highly unlikely because the motors are so the numbers are so close.
Well, the numbers should match.
Or someone
I thought, well, maybe
there might have been a time with
I thought-
Model Ts or some shit that they were like the same number on the frame and engine, but I don't think.
I was under the assumption that they do match, but that they're not the year it was produced or anything. This is the unit.
To
that was
my
finished.
knowledge, for example, Piaggio and Lambretta never made a fucking thing where the frame and engine numbers matched, were the same number, one or the other.
This is way outside my understanding. My expertise.
My understanding of numbers matching is when this like range of numbers of frames was hitting the assembly line, this range of numbers of engines was hitting the assembly line, right? And there would be weird exceptions and, of course, odd things, but
Yeah, this is very
generally
unique to
speaking, you would look through records and go, oh, okay, so as I look at this car, here's the number on the engine, here's the number on the frame. Yep, that lines up. It is completely believable based on what we're seeing that these two number ranges hit the assembly line at the same time.
Yeah.
I
This
was
is
under
so
the
unique
assumption.
to each
I was
factory.
under the assumption that when the
Right.
bike
Yeah,
came off,
exactly. You have to be a Camaro guy to know that the numbers match. You just don't look for
What?
like numbers match doesn't mean they're the same number. It means that they're kind of compatible numbers within some ranges that
Well,
make
maybe-
sense for production.
maybe this could be different all over the world, but I was under the assumption that when a car or motorcycle came off the assembly line in the U.S., when it actually got to the end, the frame and the motor were stamped with the same VIN, regardless of when either was assembled. It was at the end, they'd be stamped with the same VIN.
There was probably a time that was true, but there's definitely a time that stopped being true.
I don't really know if that's the case either. But
Whatever.
anyway,
Doesn't matter.
anyway,
For
The point
BMWs.
is that you could get an R9T today, and who knows the fuck when that engine was made. That's the point.
yeah,
We
And-
spent a lot of time on this. I think we should move on to Best Bike.
Okay,
We probably
but
should.
there's only one
We're
way
like
we can
40 fucking minutes into the show.
There's one single way we can answer this question, and that's to travel to BMW headquarters
Slap my
in
dick
Ba-
on the table.
in Bavaria. And while we're there, the Alps are very nearby.
What country do you think the Stelvio Pass is in,
Probably
Mike?
Italy, that borders Germany, southern Germany. Where's Stelvio Pass?
I thought it bordered France, but it doesn't matter.
it's this.
Okay, Jonathan
I
is
want to
looking it
say
up.
it's Switzerland.
While Jonathan is looking it up,
Close. Yeah, okay. I was one country off. Anyway,
It is Switzerland.
Okay.
Thank God. It
is it pretty close to
Swiss
France?
Italian border.
All right. So,
not far from Bavaria.
are we ready to hear?
Jeez.
Oh my god. I mean, in your defense, Mike, the north of Italy isn't a gigantic place. I would say the north of Italy, the northern border of Italy is about the size of the southern border of Indiana. It's not that gigantic.
I bet Durango is further from here than these two places.
What two places?
Munich and Stelvium Pass.
Oh no, that's further than Durango. From
Really?
here. But anyway, okay. So here we go. And the best bike in the world this week is, you're gonna love this, the 2004. Just because I had to pick a year, Honda VTX 1800.
What?
I know.
You're gonna have to sell me on this.
So we pick best and worst bikes in the world based on the criteria that an expert is picking out a best or worst motorcycle. This is the best bike in the world for just some dude that wakes up and decides he wants a motorcycle. Has no fucking clue. No fucking clue. A dude wakes up and he's like, I need a motorcycle. I have $3,500 and I don't want to be I don't want a total pussy motorcycle, right? Here we go. 1800cc, the Honda VTX 1800C, don't call it a Shadow. Even though it's really a Honda Shadow. It's that Honda 3-valve Shadow motor basically just blown up to 1800 cc's. There's a couple other weird things about it, but you can essentially think about it as like a Honda Shadow Aero, but just almost 3 times the fucking size. And you know what that means? 107 horsepower out of a cruiser.
I should hope so.
And something like 117 foot-pounds of torque.
Mm-hmm.
In 2004, beat Harley power numbers, but that also doesn't fucking matter, because the guy who buys this doesn't even know that spec sheets exists. The guy that bought this, that is still buying this, doesn't own a PC, doesn't own a laptop, doesn't own a MacBook, just has an Android phone and probably an off-brand budget one. It's not a Samsung, right? It's not an iPhone. He has some sort of weird phone, right? He just woke up one day and he's like, well, I mean, I'm going to be a biker, duh. And he's like, and he's going to buy this, and it's a Honda, and it's just going to fucking work. He's never going to change the fucking oil. He's just going to ride around with his fucking do-rag, and he's not going to buy it new. The guy before him already took the Honda badges off, and he's just like, yeah, check out my hog. Right? It's shaft drive. It goes something like 58,000 miles between oil changes. Not because that's the service interval, but realistically, that's how many miles these things do between oil changes.
Yeah, that's just the reality.
They just keep changing owners and no one ever changes the oil. But yet somehow they're all still running. Right? Am I wrong? No.
Probably not.
No one ever services the final drive system. These shaft drive systems are just put together, and like just Yoshi or whoever puts them together just salutes each one as they're going off the assembly line. Like, here you go. I'm sorry.
Godspeed.
Godspeed, yeah. No one ever fucking changes the oil, the final drive fluid in these fucking things. They never re-grease anything. They never fucking take it apart. Like, maybe once in their lifetime, like some mechanic is changing the rear tire and he's like, you know what? I just happen to have some fucking Honda, like, you know, like Molly grease lying around. I'll redo it. Like, you know, but in general, like, no, they never get fucking serviced.
You know, the guy who buys this is the guy who has no hangups and no baggage and no regard for self-image. The guy who
he
buys
vaguely wants to be a biker.
Right.
Yeah. It
But-
doesn't have to be a Harley. He's like, well, I just need like a fucking hog. Right? Like,
Yeah. And he's probably having a lot more fun than most riders out there.
he's riding free, man.
Yeah. He is.
He definitely wearing a blue jean jacket that definitely has a lone wolf patch on it.
Yeah. The dude.
Oh, this
riding-
guy probably has a Sons of Anarchy vest on.
He could. He very
Yeah.
well could. But he's just out there, man. Like he is riding this thing drunk a lot. He's going to karaoke night on this fucking thing, trying to get girls to get on the back and ride back with him. This is you. We've all seen that dude, right? And he's like, well, yeah, it's not a Harley. Like, he's constantly claiming that he's going to upgrade it to a Harley in the next, like, 7 months. But it somehow never really happens, right?
You know, I love that dude. I love guys like this. It's like there should be
I'm currently in a band with about 6 of these dudes.
there should be at least 2 of them in your neighborhood at any given moment.
Oh,
Not
every
too- not too
neighborhood
many.
has this
Yeah.
dude. Every neighborhood has this dude. Yeah,
I would say if your neighborhood has more than 4 of this guy, you should probably move.
But you want at least one.
Mhm.
You want, yeah. If you've got none of these guys, it's also a call for concern. You know?
Right. But,
Yeah.
like, can we just marvel that, like, I see these so often. I think every single one ever made is still running and only 26% of them have had service of any kind.
Yeah.
Here's the thing too. It's such a cheap bike to own. Like, I think the biggest accessory for this bike isn't luggage, isn't a windscreen. It's those fake bullet hole stickers. Is like the number one accessory for this motorcycle.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, is this not like the cheapest, low maintenance, give no fucks 100 horsepower ever?
Probably, yeah. Like,
Just ride it into the fucking ground. Who get just some dude puts it on Craigslist for $3,500. He's gonna take $2,800. You give him $2,800. You ride it home. You'll probably never even register the fucking thing in your name. You just put a fucking license plate on the back. Maybe you have to doctor some numbers or whatever, and you just ride it into the ground. But that day never comes. So eventually you just sell it for like parts or whatever, and then some dude gets it retitled or figures out whoever originally owned it. So at some point, like, some 19-year-old kid gets their hand on this thing for like $700 and whatever. And it's a bizarre life cycle with this bike. Real bizarre. But again, the specs are irrelevant. How much does it weigh? Oh, she's a big girl. Yeah, it's a big bike. The actual weight's completely irrelevant. How much power does it make? Dude, it's an 1800. Okay. It turns out it makes proper power for that displacement, actually. But who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's big, right? It's big. Is it chrome? Yeah, it's got chrome pipes. Yeah, it's got stuff. I mean, who knows? Whatever. Like, people who have no fucking clue what they're looking at are just like, oh yeah, there's a dude on his Harley. Right? We think that people fucking know what Harley Davidsons look like. There's a lot of motorcycle people that just see cruisers and assume they're Harleys. People that have never actually owned a motorcycle have no idea that this is not a Harley Davidson. They just assume it is.
Yeah.
But-
So when I first saw it, I think it was the era that you picked, 2004. I first thought, wow, that kind of looks like a Victory. And then, but I think it's more the era.
It's not
And
swoopy enough, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
And then the longer I looked at it, the more I figured out, oh, it kind of looks like a Valkyrie. And then I realized they're both made by Honda, so I looked it up. And let's get these pictures side by side here, if we can. How many parts do you think are swappable with a 2004 Valkyrie Rune?
0. Absolutely zero.
Is definitely 0.
No, not that tank.
No.
Not the
No.
tank, not the
Zero.
frame, not the airbox, not the drive shaft.
Not even
Not
the
the
fucking
shit on the
handlebars. No. None
not
of
a
it.
single part.
Completely different frame, completely different wheels, completely different forks, completely different instruments, completely different engine, completely different
yeah, the
shaft
engine,
drive
but the-
system. Everything's completely different.
Yeah, by profile, they look
The
pretty
rear
similar.
hub on the
Mhm.
shaft drive system might be similar or the same, but that's as far as I'm going to go on parts shared between the Rune and this.
All right. Well, let's get rid of the Rune then. Swiggy, how do you feel as a Valkyrie owner looking at that bike?
Well, having seen a VTX 1800 in person, they share nothing.
Okay. All right.
Maybe the gauges.
Honda is a
Maybe.
vast enterprise.
Well, it also is impressive, though, that in 2004, Honda basically managed to put Valkyrie performance into a V-twin.
Yeah, it's about the same horsepower. It's very close.
And torque.
Mhm.
It is like something. I mean, that 3-cylinder Honda motor is kind of awesome. I took a deep dive a little while ago on 2-valve versus 3 versus 4. And it turns out that the swap from 2-valve to 4-valve really has a lot more to do with what kind of shaped head you want than moving more air. You would think like, oh, well, 4-valve, it's going to move so much more air, but those valves have to be so much smaller each. And even if like their overall space is more than just the single valve, it's like, well, why couldn't you have just made the single valve bigger then? It's not about moving more air. It's more about where you're moving air. So it's not 2-valve versus 4-valve just on the surface. 4-valve isn't necessarily always better. But the 3-valve in this motor, I'm not going to get into why it was done and all of that and whatever, but it's actually a pretty fucking good motor. Yeah, so this is, again, it's basically the ultimate Shadow, but don't call it a Shadow. It's the VTX 1800, right? And it's not the VTX 1400, the fucking Fury, where it's all raked out, whatever. This is a perfectly pleasant thing to ride. And just like a Kawasaki Vulcan, it's reliable and it's whatever. Its only problem is that it doesn't say Harley Davidson on the side, but do you really care? And obviously the answer is no, for just the total ordinary dudes that don't know much about working on their bikes, that don't know much about different engine layouts and what they're just like, yeah, this is vaguely what I want. And the price is right. And the reliability is there. And the bike fucking hauls ass. And, there you go. For a certain type of dude who is not the typical listener for this podcast, this is absolutely the best bike in the world this week, this decade, this lifetime.
There's also a purity to the kind of owner of this sort of bike. This guy isn't going to be dark-siding. He's not going to be complaining about not having his phone connect to his bike. He's not going to be talking about, like, how many lumens his headlights has. Does he need to switch to HID? He's not going to be... Well, he might be carrying a gun or a knife, but he's not going to be he's not going to be proudly displaying it while he's riding.
Right.
He's going to be concealed carrying. He bought the bike because he just wanted a big cruiser and he wanted to ride.
He wants a big, dumb bike for a big, dumb ride.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Right? Again, like would this be our
haiku.
choice in any situation? Probably not. But the dude that's into this will fucking ride it into the ground or crash or whatever, something, or gets kicked out of his girlfriend's apartment and needs to trade for some cash for a place to stay for 6 months or something. Something will happen. But it's an uncomplicated bike. You just put the key in, turn, hit the starter, and it just fucking goes. And it does cruiser things. Very cruisery to cruisery people. Right? I'll tell you, the dude that owns this bike also is the number one dude who complains about gold wings.
Oh, yeah?
The dude that owns this bike, about every 17 hours, says to someone, but the Goldwing, man, like, by the time you've got like all of that in the stereo and the heat, you might as well be riding a car. Dude that owns this says that a lot.
Well, that, or he's got a lot in common with the M109R guys and the C8 guys.
Well, no, that's the Victory VTX 1800R. is the M109 equivalent. Bring
No,
up a
but
picture of that real quick. The VTX R.
no, but this
this is a curious bike, and I'm not sure exactly who goes for this. I kind of picked specifically the VTX 800C. I mean, I'm willing to extend it to the R if you think that the same guy is interested in this bike, but I don't think that.
No, I was going to say that if he wanted a sound system, he's not going to go buy a bike with a sound system or get an ridiculously expensive. He's more like
every Alibaba handlebar mounted sound system.
Yeah,
was put on this bike.
Yeah,
no others.
Yeah, he's got more in common with the Boulevard owners.
Okay, I see what you're right. There's a few of them on boulevards. This is true. Yeah.
But you know what? The owner of the 1800C, he's out riding. He's out a lot on his bike.
He doesn't do a ton of miles, but he probably rides as much, if not a little bit more, than your average Harley dude. Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't not ride, but he's never cracked a book or taken a course. He almost certainly doesn't have a motorcycle endorsement on his driver's license.
Yeah, it's all in the reflexes.
If I were to pick a demographic,
it's all about reflexes.
That was 100% riding on a permit. It's VTX 1800 guy.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the kind of bike whose price is negotiated in the parking lot of like a drive shaft factory, like a meat packing plant. Like some guys working for $18 an hour, and some guy's been riding up on this bike for about a year and a half, and some guy's been like, I'd buy that off of you, and he's finally like, man, I gotta move out of my girlfriend's house. Like,
this is a bike.
What would you offer me for it?
I think this is a bike that probably traffics very much in the shadow economy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
this bike has been traded for like a Silverado transmission. This bike has been traded for drywall, for lumber. This bike has been probably traded for like a septic system.
So I'll tell you, this guy,
somebody might have bought this bike traded just purely copper for this bike.
Yeah.
The owner of this bike has been seen in a basement poker game or two in the area, but he would never put his VTX up as collateral. Unless he's just really hit hard times.
I mean, possible. Yeah. But again, it's like I said, it is an uncomplicated bike, and it's dead reliable, and it is big power, and it's whatever. It just doesn't say Harley Davidson, but the dude that buys this is just more concerned about just getting a bike to begin with.
A bike, yeah, it's a bike.
But it needs to be a big bike.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be, I gotta have a hog. I gotta be a biker.
Mm.
But, it doesn't have to be a Harley, I guess,
Yeah, a bike like that could be gambled away.
So that's just what, like I said, for the average listener to this podcast, it's a tough thing to say. But like there's just a lot of middle-aged dudes in America. This is definitely the best bike in the world this week. It's just not even close.
Yeah.
I'll
take it.
All right.
Here we go.
All right, Mike,
Mm-hmm.
you want to bring us some
Moto news? All right. So my Moto news comes to you. I have a couple of headlines, and they're all mixed together. I wanted to do a long quiz, but I didn't have time to put the whole quiz together, so it's gonna come in the beginning as a quiz question. So here we go. Which of the following items of motorcycle legislation was signed into Arkansas state law this week? A. recognition that off-road motorcycles are inherently dangerous. B. Recognition that motocross esports competitors can be granted temporary licenses to operate real-world motor vehicles while serving as deputy firefighters. Or C. Legislation requiring that off-road vehicles be equipped with handlebar padding while being operated.
Handlebar padding.
Swiggy?
I'm going to go with handlebar padding.
The answer was A. Recognition that off-road motorcycles are inherently dangerous. So this article, my particular article, comes from.
Okay, how does this work?
What's
the function here?
You'll discover it here. Motorsports Newswire, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Oh my God!
Signed
Okay.
Act 312 into law, establishing inherent risk for off-road motorcyclists and enhancing protections for event organizers throughout the state. The American Motorcyclist Association applauds the passage of Act 312.
Oh, okay. Actually, I like this.
Yeah,
This is good.
Which offers greater protection for private landowners who provide access to their land for off-road recreation and competition. Act 312 will create more sustainable liability landscape for event organizers throughout Arkansas.
Oh, so by saying that the bikes are inherently dangerous, the landowners are less at fault.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, less 17-year-olds are going to get shot at whilst they're out riding their bikes.
Well, no, it's more for
Well,
this would be more like going to Mid Ohio. Motorcycles are inherently dangerous. Therefore, the owner of the venue for an event is not at fault for the fact that all these accidents are happening while people are being reckless.
Right.
It is putting
Okay.
the onus of risk on the acceptance of risk onto the operator.
Okay.
Thus, you can have events and without all this liability and insurance around it.
This make okay. Yeah,
That is
yeah.
exactly it. Yeah, the article says inherent risk refers to the capacity for risk naturally associated with a process or activity without any risk reduction efforts.
I like that. That's actually good.
Yeah. And I kind of fit some other headlines into here. A video game came out, Monster Energy Supercross 25. So
Yeah, it's like a basketball game or whatever. It's the same game that they've been making for 10 years. They just add a few more polygons to the characters and update the stats for each year.
it's a motocross game.
Yeah.
And it's and the company's out of Milan. They've been making games like this since 1996.
Yeah.
They made the MotoGP series.
Right.
And then the third item, the one that you both voted for, was a spin on an ATV that was recalled. The E-Bully, that's actually the name of it, the E-Bully Youth ATV, was recalled due to failure to comply with the requirements of the federal mandatory ATV safety standards. The handlebars posed a laceration hazard if the child rider's body or head impacts the handlebars at a high rate of speed.
Right.
The recall affects about 1,300 units, and there have been no relevant incidents reported.
Okay.
And then there was an article. There was a thing I couldn't find, but the thing about the firefighter one, that was. I tried to find this article, which makes me kind of wonder if I dreamed it, but I'm pretty sure that twice I've read this, probably both times on Reddit this week, is that Microsoft Flight Simulator, that people who are rated very highly in Microsoft Flight Simulator, like we're talking like the top few hundred people on that particular simulator, would be licensed to operate real-world aircrafts in firefighting emergencies. And I tried to dig that up, but I couldn't find it. So there's I would say that there's a 10% chance that my brain just made this up.
Are there enough firefighting aircraft that we have a shortage of pilots for them?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you
we
hallucinated
we
this.
can all do we can all do our own research. I was working late nights all this week. Most of my internet browsing was laying in bed, unable to lift my arms.
Okay. Do we have any other news stories?
That's the all of it. I kind of packed it right
That's
together.
great, Mike. That's
But-
great. I love it.
But I do have another important item to discuss,
Okay.
and that is the Moto One podcast or the Moto One company president sent us a memo. Did you guys get the memo?
I did not.
What's our which
Jackson.
is it Jackson? Is that his name this week? I don't think I've met this Jackson yet, but anyway, Jackson put together a performance review. And
Jackson's not the president. Jackson's the intern.
yeah, I know. The president made Jackson stay late this week and put together a performance review, and he had asked me to read it out. So
The performance review of who?
everyone on the show. So it is 4 questions. Question number 1. First, we'll go with Peter. List 3 motorcycle-related things you did in March.
So this month, I tried desperately to retune the carburetor on the Vespa to really discover that the air screw is fucked on it, or I should say the threading for the air screw is fucked. Put some Teflon tape on it or whatever, but it's still fucked. And the carburetor is just kind of worn. I can't get that bike to reliably start and idle as low as it should. Let's see. Second thing, I mean, besides doing this podcast every week this month.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we'll put that as number 2.
Item number 2. That's fair.
Number 3, motorcycle thing. I noticed that my boss was riding motorcycles into work, so I struck up a conversation going, "Hey, is that your Guzzi TT85 out front?"
Who rides a Guzzi?
Well, Peter, I can help you out here. 'Cause it's going to be one of mine. You took a motorcycle day trip.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we all took a trip. We also took a big scooter ride.
That was in March. Yeah, that was just a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that'll be my item number 1 as well. What else did I do? I took a ride earlier today. Or no, that's in April. Shit. What else did I do? I disassembled all the extra swag on my Yuli so that I can access the oxygen sensor when we're ready to get out.
Right.
Turns out to be the most difficult O2 sensor to access of any vehicle.
Yeah.
It's that tank frame. Item number 3, Jesus, what was it? Oh yeah, podcast and the trip. Yeah, podcasting and the trip and that thing.
There we go.
So okay, we all did 3 things in March.
Well, you haven't done me yet.
Oh yeah, Jonathan only did 1. So your other 2.
Yeah. So I took a day trip, and on the 9th, we went around the reservoir, did a whole day trip on the Chow Jet. I bought a new helmet.
You bailed my ass out.
I did.
Yeah.
I was able to go get supplies, tools. I bought a new helmet.
You bought a helmet in March.
I did. I bought an Arai.
So fancy.
It's very fancy. And it's amazing. And if you have the means, I highly recommend it. And I went to MotoGP.
Well, that was in April.
I left on the 28th.
You know what? We're gonna count it.
I'll count that then. Yeah.
MotoGP. I think
that's pretty fucking motorcycle.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
Swiggy,
Are you really going to debate going to MotoGP?
I don't think Swiggy's going to lose his job this month. Okay, item number 2. Name a motorcycle-related challenge you faced this year and how you would have done it better if you could. This is a performance review, Peter.
A motorcycle challenge this year.
It could have been in 2024. We'll give you a year plus 4 months.
Claire has challenged me with trying to make her Rebel more what's the word? Practical.
Okay.
So I have come up with a way.
Because when I see that Rebel, I think, what an impractical vehicle.
Well, it doesn't have any storage currently.
Okay,
And
alright.
it doesn't have a windshield. And it could just use some things. And she's
Excuse me,
also
I get-
concerned about how, if she's going to ride it to work, how she's going to get her coffee there. So
Oh.
weirdly, I need to put a cup holder on a Rebel 300.
No, that's legit. That's legit.
So she can not drink her coffee on the way to work, but have it when she gets there.
Hope she has a decently
I need to
insulated
put an
thermos.
aftermarket windshield on it, and I have a couple different pairs of bags, and I have figured out how to modify these bags to fit the bike.
Nice. I gave you one of these bags, didn't I?
I don't think I'm going to use those ones.
My bag, it's a clever idea. I got it years ago. I just only used it once or twice. It's an actual horse's saddlebag.
Right.
So, getting the coffee to work. Maybe
apparently the coffee machine at the school is fucking awful.
No, that I'm not going that direction. But maybe I'm just taking crazy pills. But before like 2005, every thermos was 100% just completely sealed. Why can't I think rather than modifying the motorcycle, this whole problem can just be solved by buying like a $20 thermos.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
But she has mugs that she particularly likes.
But you could get her a really fancy or really you could just get her a $20 thermos and then just a cup she can keep at the office that has an animal on it. And she'll love that.
You're not wrong. You're right. Like a thermos from the 70s could just go in the bags.
But then just a coffee mug with a corgi
thermos
on it and you're done.
You're right.
Like
yeah.
think laterally. Like
that's good.
With some sort of animal related pun on it and you're good.
So that's the challenge and how you would address it. Except Jonathan solved that problem for you. Things are looking good for Jonathan.
Anyway.
Yeah, sorry. Did you finish?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jonathan.
Yeah. So, I will admit that.
Was it perhaps fixing the starter on your scooter?
It is. Definitely fixing the starter on the Italjet. That was definitely a challenge, and I probably could have got that done probably 6 months faster than it took. And I will also say I was gaslit on several occasions onto what the actual problem was. But I wish I had remembered and applied the actual like fundamentals here, which is I should have tested the original starter. And knowing that it was, just grounded through the frame and that it was a very simple thing, and especially after having it open and seeing how simple it was, in which there isn't even a fucking resistor to blow out on a starter.
Well, what I always thought was the problem turned out to be the problem. But again, we were gaslit because we tested the ground and the ground showed continuity. It just turned out the ground wasn't strong enough to carry the current we were asking it to.
Yeah. Which is on brand for an Italian manufacturer.
If we'd had a more sophisticated multimeter, perhaps we could have figured out that this ground was not awesome.
Yeah.
But the basic tools we were using was, do we hear the beep? Okay, there's continuity here. This ground must be good. And
but I think if I ever come across another bad starter, I am not going to take the starter off the bike. I am first going to get a battery and run the leads to the positive and then off the frame and try and see if that motor will just spin with raw power.
Right.
And
Well,
just
also, to
isolate
be fair,
everything else out of it.
I don't think you replaced it with an inferior starter. And I think the starter you took off could have also easily have been shit anyway.
It's possible.
I
Also,
don't think it was a huge loss replacing that starter.
Yeah. Also, after I took that starter, the old starter apart, I don't know how the fuck they put that together. The way that like the spring-loaded brushes go in, it's this whole contraption
Yeah.
that just looks like there must be some jig they have at the factory to put it together. But without that jig, I don't know if there is a way for 4 hands to put that motor back together.
Oh, it's like the turn signal selectors on old Honda Twins, right? There's a dude named Yoshi who's absolutely fucking brilliant at putting them together.
Is it the same Yoshi?
Who somehow has like 13 fingers and 3 arms and can just get it all in place and get that cap on and put the screws in, right? And he just does it all. He did it for like 2 decades, putting these fucking things together.
They pay him lots
on
of
Honda
overtime.
Twins in the 60s and 70s. And and there's some dude named G that can get these starters together.
No,
and,
they
like,
don't pay him
no
a lot
one
of
else.
money. He does it for the honor. He still lives in a 600 square foot apartment.
It's for love
by
of the
himself.
game. He
By
just
himself.
mastered this because it's like maybe a better line to work on or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah,
And Yoshi salutes every bike after he wires it
every
in.
starter. Yeah, every starter. Here you go.
You know, I had
You
remembered.
have no grease points. Go.
I after we figured out the problem, I had to remember that there were like pointers on Buells that are like, if there are all these electrical issues, just make sure your ground is really good.
Right. So what challenges did you face in March, Mike?
Well, in the last year, in my defense, I moved and I was gonna fix up my old house to rent it, but then I decided it's too much and I sold it. And we bought our house was a new construction, so there's all this crap. But I need to get shit out of my garage more. I need to be more aggressive about getting rid of my old crap, and that's specifically so. So the challenge I faced was fixing up my Kawasaki, which I've mentioned several times on this podcast now. I'm sick of talking about it.
We just need to balance those carbs.
Yeah. Well, no, I've done a bunch of things. It's just that I no longer care about making a decent amount of money selling it. I just want it gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
It's
then
achievable.
is a you problem.
Yeah, that's a me
That-
problem. So that is a challenge, and
I mean, if you
how
just
I
want it
plan on
gone,
overcome it.
you can leave it on the curb with the title in a Ziploc bag. Like,
Look, I bought this bike for $700 in 2004? No, 2005.
somewhere around there.
Yeah. You were there.
I was there.
Yeah. And I should, with inflation, and I mean, if I took it down to Denver, I could make like, what do you think, $2,000 out of that thing?
No,
I don't.
not
ca- yeah,
$2,000.
I don't care. I don't care about how much cash comes back to me. It just needs to go. So that's
Okay.
that. Okay. All right. Next question. It turns out there were actually 5, not 4, but but one of them's really easy. So estimate how much time you spent operating your motorcycle in March.
March did not have a lot of great riding days, but I would say I fit in March. So right now it's April 11th, but in March I fit in a solid 5 days of riding at least, in between my work schedule and days that were good for riding.
Do you ride to work?
I have, but
Mhm.
not a lot right now. I'm going to start doing it more.
So when
I
you say
would
5
say
days,
somewhere
do you mean, like,
around 20 hours of riding in
Damn.
March.
that's pretty good.
All of it on the Vespa.
Okay. So our listeners should remember we're in California, and viewers should remember. Or, Jesus, what's wrong with me? We're in Colorado.
Yeah.
Can I just leave the room and come back in a second? No, we're in Colorado, and where we get 300 days of sunshine every year, and
At least
there's
on the Front Range we do.
and there's rideable days every month.
There are.
And we went on a several-hour-long ride up to Fort Collins.
Almost been like 6 hours we spent
Yeah,
total with your breakdown.
yeah. If you include us standing next to the bike, or the bikes chit-chatting, yeah, 6 hours.
It was time on the side of the road during a breakdown. I'm going to include it.
Yeah.
It wasn't time that we just decided to spend fucking around at a gas station for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you had a blowout at like at least 28 miles an hour.
Yeah, probably. You were behind me. You
It
saw
was a
it.
nice save, I got to
Thank
say.
you. Thank you.
You fishtailed pretty violently because we had been cruising at probably more like 40.
Mm-hmm.
We had
were
just
slowing
started
down,
slowing
yeah.
down. There was like a yellow light
Mhm.
coming up, and we were just slowing down, and then boom, your rear tire on the Stella just went just full on blowouts.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was
Which
sliding.
is something I just haven't seen for a long time. Thank God it was the rear wheel, not the front wheel. You would have lost it if it was the front wheel. Like you would have just gone down.
That would have sucked. But it was the rear wheel, and
It wouldn't have totaled the bike. We would have fixed it and everything. But the rear wheel, you saved it. You know, you didn't slam the brakes on. You maintained throttle. You rode out of it. And it was fine. Like,
oh yeah, I wasn't like for the first split second I was worried I might go down, or veer off into the next lane. But then I was good, and we were literally inside of a gas station. Like it was nice.
Yeah.
But you know, for our listeners who might not know this, you know, like picture a Vespa in your head here. Those two big lumps behind you. The one on the right has the engine underneath it. The one on the left has a spare tire.
well, you've owned your Stella long enough. You completely forgot that you had a spare tire.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a wrench.
We didn't have a
This is
12 mil socket.
This is the second time we've been stranded on the side of the highway. The first was me and Jonathan after your clutch lever went out. Or was it your throttle?
The cable.
It was a clutch cable.
It was the clutch cable. And
which Dad installed, not me.
and we serviced that one on the side of the road with marginal equipment. And I failed to remember to put decent gear, like a decent toolbox, in the glove compartment that Vespas come with.
Right. Yeah, it was just a 12 mil socket was all that we needed. I mean, and if we really had to have just done it with like pliers or something, we would have made it fucking happen. But like the point is that yeah, you had that tire go out, and I was like, oh well, this is no problem. You've got a spare, and you were like, where? And I was like, well, right there.
Yeah,
And you
I
were
was
like,
like,
what?
oh yeah.
But not only that, your spare was actually no good. We had to use the spare off of
your
mine.
bike, which was
It was good stuff. All right. So anyway, let's keep going. Swigs, how many hours have you done in March?
Probably not that many. I've done lots of small trips. I would say between the ride we did and MotoGP and then just errands and stuff, probably only like 10 to 12 hours.
All right. I mean, it's fine.
But lots of trips to the hardware store, going and getting the helmet. I get all my groceries on the bike, but
Right.
it's like half a mile.
Right.
Actually, the amount of two-stroke oil that just gets put into the atmosphere every time I start up the Italjet is probably worse for the environment than just taking the pickup
Yeah.
to the grocery store. The amount of oil that goes unburnt into the atmosphere must be worse. But
All right, so what's
Okay,
your total,
And then
Mike?
for me, I'm only going to count 4 hours of our 6-hour day. For me, I say I probably spend 7 or 8 hours out.
Okay.
Yeah, March was still pretty cold. Most days we just lucked out where we were all free and we had warm weather.
It wasn't a very wintry March, but it was a very dreary March.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
is that the end, or is there one more?
I'll just. Yeah, I think we already answered. Identify areas for improvement and growth. I think that's too similar to the last one. So the last question: if your dream motorcycle, I just lost my my mic or headphones. Anyway, okay. All right, I lost my headphones. If your dream motorcycle was transformed into an animal, real or imaginary, what would it be?
If my dream motorcycle was transformed into an animal,
Mm-hmm. Real or imaginary, what would it be?
it would be transformed into my dream motorcycle.
Bear in mind, this is a performance review.
Yeah. Maybe
This is like a question that like Garth asks Wayne on the hood of the Gremlin outside of O'Hare
right.
when
Yeah.
the plane goes over.
Yeah, I think the president just wants to see you think on your feet here.
I'm gonna go with a leopard seal that has Bengal tiger skin,
Ooh.
but it's not just a leopard seal. It's a chimera, so it's half leopard seal with tiger skin, and the bottom half is that new Kawasaki electronic horse.
With Bengal Tiger custom seats.
Sure. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, Jonathan.
You got an answer, Swigs?
Yeah. Is my mic on?
Something. We just lost a bunch of something.
Where did my? Oh, there we go. Yeah. My dream bike would turn into an anteater.
Okay.
Because it's going to be a weird animal,
Mm-hmm.
but also more interesting than you think it is, and more useful than you think it is, and more sophisticated. And then at first you think, what the fuck am I going to do with an anteater? This is such a bizarre animal. And then you realize that it's practically a dog, but just way cooler. And everyone, you start off skeptical, but then you realize this is fucking awesome.
What happened to our podcast in the last half hour? Mike, what animal is your favorite motorcycle?
You let me do the news. That's what happened. Okay, mine's really quick.
How is this the news?
No, it's not. It's our performance review. We need to take this seriously.
Okay.
My animal is a snow lion, which is just basically a snow leopard, but it's a mystical beast of Tibet.
Right.
But my snow lion, when it goes into the ocean, it becomes a dolphin, but it still kind of looks like a tiger, but it's a dolphin. And
a really hairy dolphin.
Very hairy dolphin.
Right.
Yeah, and the performance review is over. Thank you. I will submit this. I will put it in this envelope and seal it.
All right. I'm going to suggest that we don't get to our discussion topic and we leave that till next week.
I like our discussion topic. Why? How long have we been going?
An hour and 40.
Uh,
There's no way to do this and keep it under 2.5 hours.
okay.
But we can save it till next time. Leave them wanting more.
Okay.
Right? Does anyone have anything they want to bring up before we get out of here?
No, just watch Qatar, because we should definitely talk about that on the next episode.
We will talk about that next episode. I haven't seen any of it yet. I'm going to have to basically binge all of it on Tuesday.
I've seen the qualifying in the sprint race, and there is something a little bit exciting in GP.
Well, GP's always exciting no matter what, but there we go. Yeah. Okay. I think this has been good. We're keeping it under time. We could have gone a lot longer with the battery power on the camera, but you know what? I'm just going to take it. We've got a full episode in with all the audio and all the video for once. We have plans on how to upgrade the entire video element to this, but if we're going to do this in less than 6 months, we would like some more listener support. So join that Patreon. You can make one-time pledges, or you can just mail us your old shitty GoPros or whatever kind of camera. And yeah. All right. Do we want to, let's run the outro, I guess, guys? And let's do it. And I don't want to die. I just want to ride on my motorcycle. Cole.